Hello and welcome. I'm Sandy Chi and here's what happened this week. Taiwan is calling for the release of a fishing boat and its 5 crew who were taken from waters off Jingmen by Chinese Coast Guard on Tuesday night. The incident is being seen as the latest attempt by China to put pressure on Taiwan. But China's Coast Guard say the boat was using illegal fishing methods. Reese Ayres has more.
Crossing the line. A new flashpoint in the Taiwan Strait after a Taiwanese fishing vessel was boarded and detained by China's Coast Guard Tuesday night. The boat, containing a crew of 5, was then escorted to the Chinese port of Weitou after crossing into Chinese territorial waters. Taiwan's Coast Guard said they tried to intercept the vessel as it was being taken away, but eventually backed down to avoid escalation. Now they're urging China to exercise restraint and to let the fishers go.
位在陆方领海内，后续将由陆委会渔业署透过两岸管道接洽中方。海巡署呼吁陆方不要用政治因素处理这起事件。
It's the most recent in a string of incidents involving fishers and Coast Guard in the waters between the two countries. In February, 2 Chinese fishers drowned in Taiwanese waters after being chased by Taiwan's Coast Guard. Then, in March, a Taiwanese fisher was detained for floating into Chinese waters. He's yet to be allowed to return home. Politicians are weighing in on the increasing tensions, saying China is deliberately pushing the boundaries with Taiwan.
除了制造区域的紧张，对台湾的灰色地带胁迫以外，事实上对自由民主世界来讲，这都是一个升高敌意、制造不安的因子，对中国毫无好处。
And Taiwan's Coast Guard are warning vessels still operating in the area to stay alert, commenting on the often arbitrary way fishing boats are targeted in an area where accidental incursions are common.
为什么单独挑那一个？那这跟我们在海上执行作业的时候，我们在取缔路船一样，有时候就是一个随机的，看现场的状况来决定的，并没有特定的一个目的。
In light of recent escalations, both sides have been beefing up maritime security. Taiwan's Coast Guard has recorded over 500 Chinese incursions since the beginning of the year, accusing Beijing of normalizing such behavior. It's a trend that seems set to continue as more vessels operate in the Taiwan Strait. Eason Chen and Reese Ayres for TaiwanPlus.
A man who crashed his car in front of Taiwan's presidential office has been released on bail. On Monday, the man first drove his car to the de facto U.S. embassy in Taipei and repeatedly honked his horn. His car was spray-painted with phrases including SOS National Cognitive Warfare. Police say he then drove to the presidential office and crashed into a raised flower bed in front. No one was injured. Police say the man surnamed Tu was agitated when initially questioned. He has posted bail of around $6,000 US and is not allowed to leave the country. About half of the justices on Taiwan's highest court are set to step down this year. As their seats open up, judicial reform groups are calling for greater gender diversity on the bench. Chris Gorin brings us the story.
大法官性别均衡，大法官性别均衡，强化性别平等，强化性别平等。
We're here at a press conference where judicial reform groups are calling for more gender and ethnic diversity among the nation's highest court, the Constitutional Court. Now, this court has 15 justices that serve 8-year terms, and 7 of those justices have terms expiring at the end of October, just 3 months from now. They're nominated by the president and approved by the legislature. Now, this court rules on all kinds of controversial issues in the society. For example, they're the court that made same-sex marriage the law of the land, and they're also set to issue a major ruling on whether or not the death penalty is constitutional. An alliance of judicial reform groups has put forth 7 recommendations for the nomination process, but really putting an emphasis on gender diversity.
积极的矫正过去在这个宪法的法庭上面总是以男性观点为主的这个现况。
There are currently 5 women serving on the court, one of which has a term expiring in October. These groups are hoping that President Lai Ching-te will nominate even more women this time around, leading to a more diverse court. But whatever the president decides to do, he may face challenges getting his nominees through an opposition-led legislature. Scott Huang and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
2 new domestically built stealth warships have entered service with Taiwan's Navy. The Corvettes are the 6th and 7th Chiang-Class ships to join the fleet. They are designed to be fast and hard to detect and are armed with Taiwan's domestically developed surface-to-air and anti-ship missiles, including supersonic missiles. This has led them being called carrier killers. The Corvettes are part of Taiwan's asymmetric warfare strategy, aimed at countering China's much larger naval force. A growing number of countries, including Taiwan, are concerned by China's overproduction of cheap steel. Now Taiwan's leading steelmaker is seeking anti-dumping action. John Van Triest has this report.
Faced with dwindling demand at home, China's massive steel sector is looking abroad. But an influx of Chinese steel has come with backlash, with India and Mexico introducing tariffs. The United States, Thailand, and Brazil could follow them. Now, Taiwan's joining the list of countries feeling the pressure from cheaper Chinese competition. Taiwan's biggest steelmaker, CSC, says it's gathering evidence of dumping. And while the Economy Ministry has promised to respect WTO rules, it says it and other agencies will act if there are signs China has engaged in unfair practices.
受到国际不公平竞争受到实质损害的话，可以协助他们提出反倾销的控诉。财政部是负责调查这倾销的行为，经济部负责调查是不是受到实质损害。真的受到损害的话，我们就会依照法令来课征反倾销税。
But tariffs or not, China remains the world's biggest steel producer, offering attractive prices. Economists say that to compete, Taiwan needs to better market its steel.
政策上面应该思考如何走出台湾自己的特色，譬如说有没有减碳的一个钢材，当做一个绿色产品发展的一个趋势，可以高质化产品差异的一个策略走向，跟中国大陆一些产品做一些区隔。
Economists say it's important for firms to work closer with the government to counter dumping, but also to look beyond the current Chinese glut so Taiwan steel is competitive even in the future. Leon Lien and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
The economy minister is facing questions from lawmakers after 2 fresh blackouts. As John now reports, his answers could signal an about-face on Taiwan's nuclear energy policy.
Yet another blackout. Nearly 5,000 homes in the northern city of Taoyuan lost power Tuesday morning. A squirrel touched a power line, and that was it. It's the latest in a string of outages in recent months that's frustrating residents.
乱七八糟，没事停什么电，睡觉睡不着，热得要命。
And that wasn't the only blackout of the day. Around noon, a malfunctioning fuse box cut power to over 1,000 homes in Tainan down south. These blackouts come 2 weeks after a crucial tech zone in Taipei lost power, shutting down work and raising questions over how realistic Taiwan's goal of becoming an AI hub really is. It's not just residents losing patience. On Tuesday, lawmakers had questions for Economy Minister J.W. Guo. He says there are problems like old equipment and growing a population density in some areas that strained the grid. But he says the blackout situation isn't as bad as it may seem.
每一年的跳电的次数跟当今来比，现在并没有比较多，现在只是因为媒体的报道，反而好像他每天看到都有个跳电。
Then came something of a surprise. For years, the ruling Democratic Progressive Party has promised to phase out nuclear power by 2025. But Guo now says it won't put up a fight if the opposition-controlled legislature votes to keep reactors online, including a reactor whose fate may be decided in a vote next week.
这么多的民众这个期许，立法院他会参考吧？我们就是执行单位，立法院只要通过什么，我们就去执行什么。
Some analysts see this as evidence of a split on the issue within the Democratic Progressive Party and a sign of uncertainty about what's to come.
I think you can separate between the pro-business people that President Lai has elevated within his administration and who are generally pro-nuclear, and what I would characterize as the DPP old guard, such as the vice premier and the premier. I think they're still really attached to the no nuclear homeland idea.
From human error to faulty equipment to squirrels, Taiwan's recent power cuts have many causes. But in the background are worries about supplying Taiwan's tech and industry sectors. There's anxiety over dependence on imported fossil fuels. And there's debate over where nuclear power should fit into the energy mix. Just over a month into the job, the new cabinet faces a serious question with no clear answer: how to power Taiwan. Klein Wong and John Van Triest for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's railway union says that 8 workers who are facing punishment over a train derailment are being made scapegoats. John is back for the story too.
This train still bears the scars of a collision with boulders that caused it to derail 2 weeks ago. Dazed passengers were left to walk out into the rugged terrain of Taiwan's east coast. 9 were injured. Taiwan's state-owned railway company now says more should have been done. It's rewarding 4 employees, including the conductor, for their actions, and punishing 8 others for negligence. One of the stiffest punishments is going to a worker charged with monitoring security cameras. A camera overlooking the accident site captured the flood that dragged the boulders onto the tracks as it happened, 19 minutes before the train crashed into the fallen rocks. But no one warned the crew there was danger ahead.
发生这个事情的那个当下，他人是在里面。他自述呢，就是他在里面有做监看，但是他没有注意到那2个荧幕，他的确没有看到，所以他也没有反应跟通报。
The company's chair has asked to be punished as well. But the railway union disputes the idea that the people monitoring the cameras were negligent.
这些第一线的员工是在一个有非常多几十甚至到上百的荧幕前面在进行监控的。等到就是收到了相关气象单位或者是监测单位的通知，我们公路段的同仁才会特别针对该路段去进行监控。台铁的这个杜董事长不要因为自己要政治负责，连带拉基层员工下水。
As the rail company hands out rewards and punishments, it's also taking steps to prevent similar accidents. By the end of the month, it expects to dredge streams along the tracks, have 2 people monitoring the camera at the accident site 24/7, and set up a landslide warning system nearby. Other work, like shoring up vulnerable mountain slopes, may be done by the end of the year. But eastern Taiwan's mountains are prone to landslides, especially after recent earthquakes and heavy rains. A rockslide Thursday morning put more boulders on the rail line that runs through the east, a demonstration of how hard a task the railroad company has ahead of it. Justin Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
16 people have died from a rare summer flu spike in Taiwan over the past week. The youngest was a 3-year-old who was vaccinated for flu last year. Taiwan has not seen a summer rise in influenza for 7 years, and it coincides with a rise in COVID-19 cases. The Centers for Disease Control reported 64 deaths due to complications from COVID last week. It predicts the COVID wave will peak in mid-July. Taiwan's shrinking population means many schools are struggling to stay open. But that's not the whole picture. As John Van Trieste reports, schools with good reputations are getting more applicants than they can handle.
Zhangxing Junior High School is in an unusual position. As other nearby schools see enrollment shrink, Zhangxing's prestige has parents competing to get their kids in. This year, it's had to turn away 168 students who would otherwise qualify. The Zhang siblings' parents are among those who'd pinned their hopes on the school, but the 2 children haven't gotten in. Their relatives say, unlike some families who move their family registry to a different school district to get kids into good schools, they are bona fide locals.
随便想应该都知道说很多人都是寄户的啊，但是我们是在地，就是出生就在住在这边的。
This year's entering class is definitely out of the ordinary. For one thing, it's bigger than normal. All these kids were born in the Year of the Dragon, a Chinese zodiac year thought to be good for having children. But also, Zhangxing's principal says their exam scores have been above average.
彰兴国中今年的会考成绩比往年都要更好。我们如果依照去年的录取标准，彰中、彰宁，我们今年是破200个。
But since 2021, local officials have been trying to stop this type of crowding by spreading resources around so that children in more rural areas can get a decent education. They've restricted enrollments in 15 schools around Zhanghua County. Still, parents are determined to squeeze their kids into schools they think offer the best, leaving officials with the tricky task of keeping the rest of the local schools on an equal footing. Scott Huang and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching Here's What Happened. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, take a sneak peek at this new Barbie exhibition in London, celebrating the iconic doll's 65th anniversary. I'm Sandy Chi, take care and see you next week.